Hi, and welcome to this ForNAV coffee break. My name is René Brummel. I'm a product specialist at ForNAV, and I will be your presenter today. As this coffee break is live, you can ask your questions via the GoToWebinar question window. We will answer them at the end of the coffee break. Today, we are going to demonstrate that with ForNAV, you don't need to know anything about AL Code, Visual Studio Code, or Powershell. To do this, we will add data from fields and tables in a third-party extension to our report and display that data as a QR code. All without writing a single line of AL code. Indeed, all without leaving the comfort and convenience of our favorite editor. For this webinar, I have created a vendor documentation extension that holds data about my vendor portals. I want to print these download locations on my vendor list with a QR code for each portal. All the techniques we will demonstrate today are valid for any ForNAV report in any extension. To demonstrate that with ForNAV you don't need to know anything about AL Code, Visual Studio Code or Powershell, I'm going to use these steps. The prerequisites, what do I need to get going? In step 2 I will add fields to my report without adding new columns. In step 3 I will add a data item without creating a report extension. In step 4 I will add a barcode without installing fonts. Let's start with the first step. Today I will be working in the Business Central on-premise Docker installation with the Business Central 2021 Wave 1 release. I've installed the ForNAV customizable report pack and I have executed the step-by-step wizard from the assisted setup to get started. Of course, everything I do today is also available on the Business Central cloud environment. I also have the ForNAV Designer installed on my PC. The ForNAV Designer can be downloaded from the ForNAV website. The first thing we need to do is add data from our third-party extension to an existing report. We will add the number of portals fields from our vendor card here. So just to have a look what I'm talking about, I've created a new extension just for this webinar. And this extension extends the vendors in Business Central, and on the vendors I've created a new table with my vendor portals, and I've got a new field which displays the number of portals. And if I create a new portal, so you simply create something else right here. So I've added an API and refresh the page. You will notice that this number of portals has now been incremented. Because this is a flow field, it doesn't hold any data in the actual database, it just shows the number of portals that I've configured in my vendor portals here. And to see what's going on behind the screens, which is something we need when we want to display this stuff on our report, I need to know what field I'm talking about, which is the PTE number of portals field right here. You will notice that's in a per tenant extension in the that's in a PTE extension, and I've got my vendor portals right here, which is a different table. It's a new table and that holds a number of fields. It holds the vendor number, the name and the URL, and a couple of system fields. So I want to display this stuff on my report, and I want to display this on my vendor list. So let's open my vendor list from my ForNAV standard reports. I don't need to do anything special here. I can just open my report right here, and let's say I'm not that interested in my vendor posting group, so let's override this with the PTE number of portals fields. So I can open my list data item and search for PTE. You will notice I have my number of portals field right here, and I can simply drag it into my report. Of course, I need the caption as well. ForNAV loads the caption for me as well. I can find my field captions of my list. Once again, find my PTE number of portals. Drag that into my report as well. And I'll make these yellow so we can see what's going on. A preview straight from the ForNAV Designer. I don't need to save or publish anything. There we go. Now let's scroll down. You will notice that my number of portals field is not filled at the moment. It's still 0, and that's because I forgot to calculate the field. I told you in the beginning that the number of portals field is a flow field, so we need to calculate it, and to calculate it I can open my calculated fields property on my data item, and in here I can find my PTE number of portals right there. And if you don't know if your field is a flow field or not, because in some cases you don't know what sort of fields there are in your extensions, you can simply open the calculated fields page from your ForNAV designer, and that will tell you which fields are flow fields and which fields are not. All of the fields in this list are flow fields, so if you want to display any of these in your report, you need to calculate them first. So added my number of portals to my calc fields. Let's try this again. And there you notice that our London postmaster has 2 portals. And if I scroll all the way down to page 7, you'll notice I have a vendor called ForNAV, which has 3 portals. So I can even choose to filter my report based on my third-party extension data, also without messing about with any code or Visual Studio Code or anything else. I can simply select my list data item, and on the data item you will notice that I can't change the table it's connected to or anything. That's built into the report, but I can change the data item table view, so I can add a filter here in the where property. In the where property I can filter my PTE number of portals. I want a filter and I want the value to be greater than 0, because I only want to display brackets, only want to display vendors that actually have a portal. So hit OK and preview again. There we have it. We now have our list that's filtered only on vendors that have a portal, which are London Postmaster and ForNAV ABS. Now we know how many portals we have. It's time to display the actual URL records on our report. To display a new line per record, we need to add a new data item. In ForNAV, we can do this without having to create a new report extension in VS Code. So let's go and have a look. So I will go back to my ForNAV designer. And in my ForNAV designer, I can simply grab a data item from my standard controls on the left and drag it on top of the data item where I want to add it. And I will go and find my data item. And we've already established that all of the extension stuff I've got starts with PTE, per tenant extension. So I'll search for PTE and I'll find my PTE vendor portal page. And this vendor portal table needs to be linked to the existing table I have. ForNAV needs to know how to get the data, how to filter the data. And that link is created for me automatically because I have a vendor number field on my vendor portals table. ForNAV recognizes that, and it will recognize that my list is based on the vendors, and it will automatically create a data item link for me. And if I drill down into here, you will see that on the PTE vendor portal fields, vendor number has been linked to the vendor fields number. So that's simple enough. If you want a different link, you can simply remove this and create your own, but I'm perfectly happy with this. So I've created that. Then of course I need to display some data, so I'll insert a header and let's insert a body. And after creating my new data item, you will notice that the PTE vendor portal will be added in my field lists with all of its captions. So let's grab the name and the URL, select them with the Ctrl key pressed, drag them into my report, and ForNAV will create a table for me. So let's move this to the left and make the font bold because it's a header after all. And in the body, of course, I don't want the captions, I just want the name and the URL. So I'll drag these in, same way, select them with the Ctrl key pressed, drag them into the report as a table and add them right here. and then let's give it a nice fresh green color so they stand out a little bit when we print them, and preview the report. And there we have it. We now have our two URLs for London Postmaster, and we have the three URLs that we have for ForNAV. Finally, we can display the URL as a QR code, so you can scan it from somewhere inside your company and go to the URLs. With ForNAV, we don't have it to install any barcode fonts or write any code. We can just choose a barcode control and set the symbology to QR. So let's try that. Back to ForNAV. Now for a QR code I need a little bit more space, so I'm just going to give my body a bit more space. Move this one to the left. Now I want to create a barcode, and of course I can grab a barcode control and set everything manually, but I can also in my PTE vendor portal select the URL, keep the shift key pressed, drag it into my report, and when I drop it, ForNAV will ask me what I want to create. In this case I want to create a barcode, so I'll choose barcode and make it a little bit bigger. Now in the properties of my barcode control, you will notice my source expression has automatically been set to vendor portal URL, and my symbology needs to be set to QR code. And we've added every barcode symbology that we could think of, so anything you want to use should be there. Now it says there are invalid characters in the text, so I need to set my barcode symbology properties. I don't want to display any text in my barcode, and in the symbology I'm going to change my compaction mode to byte and preview. And there we have the barcodes. And just to prove that there's nothing going on, I'm going to read my barcode from my barcode manager. Simply grab the first one, and you will notice that this wants to open the link to fornav.com/download, which is of course the URL that is in my database. So let's recap what we just did. We set out to demonstrate that with ForNAV you don't need to know anything about AL Code, Visual Studio Code or PowerShell. We showed this by first adding a field and a table from a third-party extension to our standard ForNAV report. Finally, we displayed one of our fields as a barcode. The great thing about ForNAV is that it lets us do all these things without having to write a single line of code. We have published the source code for the extension I used in our GitHub repository, so if you want to have a look at that, you can find it right there. Thank you for listening to me so far. I see we don't have any questions. If you do have any questions you want to ask, please type them in the question box whilst I proceed with wrapping up this coffee break. If you want to know more about ForNAV, or if you want to download the ForNAV Designer and Converter, please visit our website. If you want to install ForNAV in Business Central Cloud, please visit the Microsoft App Source, and you can watch more videos about ForNAV on our YouTube channel. If you have any questions about ForNAV, please email them to support@fornav.com. For a full list of upcoming and recorded coffee breaks, please visit fornav.com/coffeebreak. With that, thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.